Okay, this lecture video is called How to Recognize a Nutrition Ignoramus. And this is just some of the common questions that once you become a vegan, you hear this stuff all the time. So it's good to know how to respond to it. People will challenge you. So the first thing is nutrition ignoramuses, they'll say stupid stuff like, oh, I believe in everything in moderation. And that's so incredibly stupid, but people think that's an intelligent thing to say. I mean, it's sort of you have a plate. Why not put good food on both halves? People say everything in moderation, little good food on one side and junk food on the other side. It's just stupid. And a lot of times what's happening is people apply social thinking, which most people are pretty good at, to nutrition, health, science thinking most people are not good at. The crowds, people who eat by everything in moderation, they don't do very well. Another thing people say is, I prefer the Mediterranean diet. Like, and they don't even really know what they're talking about. What do you mean by Mediterranean? Ansel Keys came up with that term because a lot of times he's looking at the diet of the people from Crete and he didn't want to call it the Cretan diet. And, and what does that mean? A lot of times people think of Greece. Well, a lot of Greeks nowadays are very fat. Olive oil, cheese, wine, fish, they're all quite bad for your health. All these staples of the Mediterranean diet. It's very bogus, and even a lot of doctors recommend it just because they're ignorant of nutrition. It's a way to pretend you know what you're talking about, but it's a sign. Whenever you hear somebody recommend the Mediterranean diet, my advice would be immediately stop wasting your time listening to that person. It's a sign that they're a phony, a liar, or they're an ignoramus. Okay, I'm a flexitarian, and I've got doctor friends who say that to me, and they're good doctors in their field, but that's a sign of significant ignorance about food. Flexitarian. It's a little bit like everything in moderation. It's fun to say and it sounds good, but it's a sign that you're ignorant. Okay, I love the taste of junk food. Well, yeah, junk food tastes good because they put MSG in it and a lot of sugar and other things. I mean, they test to find that so-called bliss point where a person wants to buy more of it. And so, your body's made for sweet, high-calorie food, but it just throws a monkey wrench into your metabolic system, all your biochemical pathways. Okay, what about those people who say meat is good for you? They're like astrologers. I like this quote by Francesco Guicciardini, the Italian Renaissance historian, okay, from the 1500s. He said, how happy are astrologers to be believed if they tell a truth but once out of 100 lies, while other persons are not believed if they tell one lie. Yeah, I mean, meat is just so bad it's not even funny. It's good to think of meat as a poison, okay? Grass-fed beef, organic grass-fed beef, wild game, it's a little bit better, but there's still tons of problems with meat. I got separate lectures on that. A good one would be, does meat cause cancer, for example, or the lipotoxemia lectures. Okay, how can I cook without oil? I need oil for cooking. A lot of doctors say this to me. And you do not. I mean, to make all these plant foods, all you need to do is boil water. Rice, oatmeal, quinoa, potatoes, sweet potatoes, beans, just boil water. I don't even peel my potatoes. I just throw them in and boil them, okay? I mean, when I cook. I try whenever possible to get, a woman to cook for me, but I often can't. I got to cook for myself. And believe me, the women who do cook for me, they're very overpaid. So, anyways, they're very territorial in the kitchen. Okay, let's see, what else? Cooking oils weren't even in existence for the most part before 1880, okay? So people somehow managed before then. Fruits are eaten raw. Most vegetables don't need to be cooked. There's a lot of vegan cookbooks. If you're interested in all this cooking stuff, Chef AJ is a really good YouTube channel or website for that sort of thing. I'm not. I'm the Spartan vegan. Boiling water is the most I do. Here's another thing people always say to me. Well, my uncle ate meat and smoked cigarettes and he lived to 90, so I have good genes and I can eat whatever I want. No, that's just an ignorant statement. First of all, it's a very small sample set, naming one person. Secondly, hardly any disease is genetic. Most of the time people think something's genetic. It's because they both, the same family ate the same diet. They all smoke cigarettes. If you look at epidemiology of billions of people, it shows that low-fat, plant-based populations are much healthier. I mean, look at the China study. I mean, how many millions and millions and millions and millions of people, and, the ones eating these rice-based plant diets, they're all skinny. They don't got any diabetes. They didn't have any coronary artery disease, none of that stuff. And that's been shown all over the world, in Japan, Papua New Guinea, and Africa, you name it. There's tons of data for that. Okay, other things people say. Well, I didn't used to be fat. I think this is just a thyroid problem. Well, if you think it's a thyroid problem, get your thyroid checked. What's the most common cause of thyroid disease? Hashimoto's thyroiditis. Next is probably Graves' thyroiditis, Graves' disease. And basically, what are they caused by? Leaky gut. From what? From eating meat and oils. Come on. So stop eating that stuff, and you got a better chance to not further damage your thyroid, if that is your problem. And a lot of times, too, what I've seen is skinny people sometimes are a little more sensitive to cold temperatures than fat people. For example, in my family, I got some fat people who still eat meat and fry their food. And I like the temperature in the house about 5 degrees warmer. So they keep telling me I have a thyroid problem. So I went and got my thyroid checked, and my thyroid numbers are perfect as expected. I knew they had to be good because I got fantastic concentration and great endurance for lifting weights and exercise and working out. So I knew there was no problem, but I had to prove it to them. So yeah, the best way to protect your thyroid, like we talked about, low sodium, very low fat, vegan diet. Okay, the next thing is people say, oh, their fatness must be some type of hormonal problem. Well, what causes elevated estrogen, which leads to obesity? Eating meat for multiple reasons. We cover this in separate lectures, like my female problems lecture on estrogens. Drinking tap water is full of estrogens. You gotta filter your water. All these soaps, shampoos, cosmetics, they all contain estrogen preservatives and quite often estrogen chemicals in addition to that. And the containers made out of estrogenics. Aluminum's a metalloestrogen. There's tons of these estrogenic chemicals, and really it's in your best interest to avoid them. They do make you gain weight, get fat. Birth control pills, estrogenic, can make a person gain weight. Next thing people say to me, oh, I don't care about living to be 100. I just want to enjoy my meals. Well, ask any guy who's impotent if he wishes he wasn't impotent, okay? When you eat high-fat meals, you're plugging up the arteries to your Johnson. The Johnson arteries, pudendal arteries, 1.5 millimeter in diameter. That's about half the diameter of the coronaries. They're about 3 millimeters. So, plugging up your arteries to your Johnson and other locations, that's not going to make you happier. Plugging up the arteries in your brain and having insulin-resistant diabetes in your brain, causing dementia and making yourself stupid, that's not going to make your life any better. All these meat and high-fat diets, they tend to cause all these diseases that lead to surgery. There are tons and tons of surgeries. You can ask any doctor at any hospital in America. Every morning there's a big, essentially like a line out the door of diabetic, hypertensive, fat people, okay? And they all got the same diseases. It's an endless, river flows into every hospital of all these, Western diet, sad diet eating people with plugged up arteries and everything that goes with that, and abdominal pressure syndrome. And it's all the same stuff all day long, and almost all of it's preventable. So, they're just ignorant, and then they get, all cut up for surgeries, open heart surgeries, etc., gallbladders, diverticulosis, cancer surgeries, appendicitis surgeries, on and on. Okay, next thing people say, well, eating a plant-based diet is boring. That's so boring. Well, first of all, once you're in the habit of doing it all the time, your tastes will change. They'll become more sensitive to the taste in plant foods. It's sort of like what our mouth is designed for. And then I make the reference, it's kind of like a Renaissance painting, which by itself might seem a little boring, a little flat, a little plain, a little Byzantine-ish, But when you put it in the context of the things around it, it can be quite beautiful and tell a story. Plants do so many good things, and we're just designed for this. They contain the fiber. The fiber feeds the good gut bacteria. The good gut bacteria make short-chain fatty acids. The short-chain fatty acids are the main source of energy, about 2/3 of the energy supply for the colon lining cells, the enterocytes. This prevents leaky gut. Okay, the fiber slows glucose absorption, so you get prolonged normal blood glucose, and your hunger is satisfied for a longer amount of time with a minimum number of calories. So you don't get fat. Your body weight is optimized. Everything is good. You never get diabetes. There's no type 2 diabetes in these populations. Okay, the starch, fruits, and vegetables, they work together. It's like a coordinated symphony of health. It just makes everything good. And the other thing is, your butt becomes like an alarm clock. Your gut is so predictable. It's not even funny. 1 in the morning, 1 when you come home from work, okay? It's nice. It's, before that, if you're eating all these meat and processed food and junk food, a lot of people got irritable bowel syndrome, an unpredictable pattern, versus when you eat this low-fat, low-sodium vegan diet, it ends up having a pretty precise circadian rhythm. You know, then here's the religious joke. You're like the prodigal son coming home to the family of foods you were made for. You know, we're made to eat plant foods. It's pretty obvious when you experiment with it and you study it. If you're trying to decide what to do, just try it for a couple months. You'll see. That's it.